Welcome to a special edition of Native Bidaské. Tonight we're going to remember the life of Ernie Stevens, Jr., who was the chairman of the Indian Gaming Association for the last 25 years. Ernie left us last week, Friday, at the age of 66. And so we just felt at Native News Online it's very appropriate to talk about his life and share some memories with many of his friends. And the people we have on the program tonight really truly were his friends and worked very hard for Indian country to advance Indian policy, Indian gaming, youth, and we're excited with the assembled panels. But I want to bring on Chance Rush. Chance Rush is a friend, and he has emceed several Indian gaming conferences with Ernie Stevens through the years, and I kind of call him his sidekick, Ernie's sidekick, because they would banter back and forth on stage. To me, a great warrior in Indian country. He fought very hard for Indian gaming. And here's Chance. Chance,
hey man,
we had a little technical difficulties there, but here you are, brother. Good to see you.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay.
And you're coming from Dallas, correct?
Yes, sir. I'm Dallas, Texas. And, Levi, I just want to thank you for, using a Native News online platform for this very special, just remembrance. Obviously, we're all still in shock. And I think we all come together like this, especially in the back room. We're still in shock. But, I'm just thankful that, Native News Online is willing to use this platform and even the guests, taking time out of, their responsibilities, on top of, what we're all going through. So we do appreciate you.
Yeah, well, thank you, sir. And, Ernie was very special. And tell us about your relationship. I know you two had a very close relationship.
Ernie and I, man, we were just like the 1-2 punch. I mean, it was like, even if we knew each other for a lot of years, but it took probably about maybe 10 years of being really good friends to finally say, hey, let's work together. Just because I think we tolerated each other's jokes. I think we were the only two that laughed at each other's jokes. It was just something that was very special to me. I never had the accolades of being an actor or a politician or, anybody spectacular, but he always made me feel important. And, just watching him of who he is and what he stands for. I mean, he was just a simple man, and he was a giant, but he was a simple man. And I'm just very grateful to share that stage with him. I'm one of very few that could say that I talked as long as him, and I threw the jokes back at him. So it was a very special time to be part of the IGA family and just to share a stage with a giant.
He was a giant, and I think I call him the giant warrior. And what do you think his legacy will be from your viewpoint?
I'll be honest with you. Ever since Friday, I don't think that. I mean, I tried to see, what type of legacy he would leave, and I just couldn't come to anything because he was literally the individual that said it's not about leaving a legacy. I mean, it's about leaving a legend, and he left a legend. And I mean, he sprinkled so much work for all of us to do, no matter how big a role that you have in Indian country. His legacy is just, he was a legend, and there was nobody that wasn't important to him. And we talked a little earlier building up to tonight's broadcast, and I used to say, he let you know, but he also loved you. And I shared that a little bit earlier today with Gina. Like, I remember there was a time whenever he got on to me because I ordered a salad and they brought out anchovies on it and I didn't want it. And he said, man, you could have just peeled them off. And then the lady was like, oh, my bad. That's not your plate. Your plate's down here. You're the one that didn't want the anchovies. And then he looked at me and with that little turn, and he said, oh, okay, well, good. You got your food. And then he smiled at me, and so he let you know, but he also loved you.
Yeah. And years ago, I I asked him for some passes for some people. We were starting the old Tribal Business Journal. So he got us into the mid-year, the mid-year for back then, the National Indian Gaming Association. And these guys I was doing business with kept sending people. I said, can I get more passes? Can I get more passes? Well, Ernie, through the years has taken that up. The Levi brought 30 people in. And he told me it like 2 weeks ago, and it was actually kind of humorous. But he never let me forget. But I never forget how great he was to me when early days of Native News Online. We were at a national conference one day, and he was a keynote speaker. And about halfway through his speech, he stopped. And he says, and I just want to let you guys know, Levi Rickert's out there. He has Native News Online. And if you don't read him, you need to read him. He's doing great things for Indian country. And I have to tell you, Chance, he made me feel 10 feet tall. And you know, I felt special from that day on, and we had a good relationship. But you know what? After reading the tributes all weekend long, I discovered Ernie made a lot of people feel special. And that is, to me, it's a wonderful thing about a leader who has that capacity to really promote other people. And he was promoting me, right? And one time I was leaving the Mirage, we were at Rez, and one time I was leaving the Mirage, we were at Rez, and Laker AC Green was walking with former great Levi, come here, Laker. Let me introduce you AC Green, and he stopped. AC, this is one of the best Native American drums we have. And, you know, there again, made me feel 10 feet tall. Native American basketball players like those two. You know, there again, made me feel 10 feet tall. It was quite a statement, but I want to acknowledge, personally for Levi Rickert, what he did and what he said to me, that gave me a lot of confidence. And you know, when you get the endorsements of the people, like we have tonight, President Mark Macarro from NCAI, and we have Larry Wright, we have Jason Giles. So we're going to bring them on right now and bring them into the party. And actually, it's when I say party, I say that in all due respect to Ernie. This is a serious thing that we're remembering Ernie, but at the same time, we are all good friends, and I think they can all respect what we're doing, trying to do tonight. So I want to start with President Macarro, and he is the senior official at the table right now, president of the National Congress of American Indians. Welcome, President Macarro. Where are you calling in from? Home in California?
Yeah, Pechanga Reservation, Temecula, Southern California.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
And then we have Larry Wright, the executive director of NCAI. And Larry, you're in Green Bay now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And Jason Giles, he is the executive director, worked with Ernie for, what did you tell us today, 19 years?
Started at IGA 19 years ago. So thank you, great. Levi.
And you're coming from Washington?
Yes, I am. Sorry about the lighting. It looks like I'm ascending up to the heavens.
Well, maybe you're trying to go reach Ernie,
so.
Don't go quite yet.
Yeah.
Hey, Chance, why don't you start with some questions, if you don't mind?
You know, well, first of all, you know, Jason, man, I know it's a little surreal to you. I mean, it's surreal to all of us, but, you know, thoughts and prayers to you and your family. And I can only imagine, you know, what it's like to go to work, or, you know, that constant phone call. So, you know, thank you for being on with us. So we really do appreciate that. And I'll, you know, I'll come back, but I guess, you know, to the three of you, you know, in what did Ernie, what did Chairman, what is his voice telling you right now? The three of you, you know, President, for NCAI, Macarro, President Macarro, appreciate it. What is he saying to you? I mean, we all have a responsibility. We're all on the front line, but what did he leave? What assignment did he leave you?
Well, let me start off with a little lightheartedness. First thing is, he would say, "Go Dodgers," and I love the Dodgers. It's first day of the playoffs, but in all seriousness, what I'm hearing, and I think what he would be saying is you got to continue being the warrior. All of us, this is what we do together. We pull together, we unite, and especially right here on the eve of what is potentially a government shutdown. Ernie was with us 2 weeks ago in DC as we relaunched our Unity Week, and he was a big part of that. And his voice, his presence, it was a key to the success that we had there, Jason. You were there. Even the press conference. I'm hoping sometime over the next week or so, Levi, you get a chance to run that. Because, I had some framing remarks, and then he had some color commentary that was classic Ernie, talking about tribal sovereignty and upholding tribal sovereignty. Doing this work for our people. And being balancing being that warrior, but being that statesman, being that diplomat. And he was always mentoring, whether he realized that's what he was doing or not. Always mentoring. He was always teaching us that way. I feel I learned from him quite a bit, just watching how he went about things. I do want to. I have more to say, but I'll just end my initial thought with this comment that I do want to. Ernie and I were far apart in age. I'm younger than he was, but I really feel like he had 1 foot solidly in our predecessor's generation. He was like he had the wisdom of the previous generation or even two, and he brought that in the present. He was able to fuse the two for our benefit, for the benefit of Indian country, for the benefit of tribal sovereignty, and for the benefit of the organization that he served. We're so thankful that his family was able to share with us as long as they did.
I appreciate that, President. Me and Levi were talking about this earlier. So I guess me and Levi were talking about this earlier. So I guess he always did this. Larry, with all of us. He always did this. We all didn't do that. Like, there wasn't a picture that we all. What does your fist with him mean? What does that mean? What is your fist with him? What does that mean? Because to us, he was the. When he had his fist up, Larry, and you had your fist up. When he had his fist up. What does that fist mean to you?
Yeah, I appreciate that chance and appreciate being on this panel with everybody. And just to go back, I met Ernie 20 years ago when I first got elected to my tribal council, and but got to know him within the last 15 years. And as we were fighting for our casino, and I got our tribe to join NIGA at that time, because I went to one of their conferences, and just the first time I watched him speak, I was in awe. And all the comments that have been made here, that he was consistent in that message, and President Macarro, you said it best, bridging the gap between those predecessors that he grew up with and learned from, and bringing that forward to, at that time, a young tribal council member like myself, to understand that history and the importance and what's the challenge before all of us yet today. And we fast forward that to that press conference last week, and his words in this time of hardship for Indian country and this country. But his message has always been consistent about that fight and resilience and tribal sovereignty. And, I had the opportunity to hear him explain what that meant. And it wasn't just a fist, but it was to replicate the strength of the heart in the fight that we have, and having him explain that. And, I consider him a mentor and a friend. And when we finally did get our casino, he came out for 3 days during our grand opening and stayed that whole time. And we were just hoping for just a sliver of his time, but that's what he meant to that. And even when I was first selected to be in this position, one of the first people to reach out was Chairman, and talking about the importance of this position and the challenge before us, before me, and that he would always be there if I ever needed anything. And, that's who he was. Mm. And you talk about all these, even in the outreach since Friday, all the tribal leaders that I talked to just echo the sentiments that have already been shared, that everybody felt like they mattered to him, and he wanted to uplift them every opportunity he got. And so you always felt special when you talked to him, and know that he would do anything for you and take the time to meet with you. And so I think that's, I think he was a living legend, and even more so now. And so with all the people that he talked about that have gone on before, he's definitely among that group, and one that our task now is to make sure that nobody forgets the work that he did along with those others, and the importance that he has for Indian country. And so this will always mean something to each and every one of us. And I think it is our duty to make sure that the next generation of leaders understands what that means.
I appreciate that, Executive Director. Thank you very much for those words. And I mean, everywhere you went, when you did that, you'd be like, man, I'm telling Ernie. That's what they would always say. Hey, before I turn over to you, Levi, Jason, like I said earlier, 18 years, 19 years, what is, and we all knew him, we were all close with him, but you knew him on the daily. What were some things that a lot of us probably didn't know about Chairman, or some, some good-hearted things or some fun things that y'all did, those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, Chance, you yourself got to experience Ernie sort of behind the scenes when he wasn't speaking publicly and wasn't out and about greeting Indian country and tribal leaders, which was his passion. But behind the scenes, he really valued empathy and working with people, and just never, if he saw somebody was down, he'd try to pick them up. He was just sort of empathetic in that way, and I think that comes from his life growing up, and I'm sure Chance, if you ever sat around with him, he was open about his life and the struggles he overcame, and what he had to do to get his life in order. And he's a shining example of you never give up on someone, because he'll tell you he was alone in the streets for a long time, and he had to overcome whatever anger and other things he overcame in his life to get where he was as a family man and somebody that just cared about those around him. And that's really the biggest thing. I think most of Indian country saw him up on the stage or at events, but maybe we should have done more therapy sessions, something like this, therapy time with Ernie Stevens, because he could really relate to people, and it didn't matter what walk of life or where you came from, but if you're not feeling your best, or if you were overcoming struggles, or if you were struggling at that moment, he knew how to relate, and he knew what to say, and mostly because he had been there. And that's the biggest shining example. I don't think that we ever highlighted it enough while he was at Indian Gaming Association. Just hey, here's somebody, the background story, because the background story in and of itself of just Indian gaming and working and fighting for tribal sovereignty and overcoming all the attacks from the government, state governments, commercial gaming. Ernie had to take a lot of those arrows up front, and he always did it with a smile and a handshake, and he never let it get to him in public, and he just always came back and kept meeting with folks, no matter how poorly he had been treated by Nevada Resorts Gaming and all those lobbying groups back then that really had nothing nice to say about Indian gaming. And then especially on Capitol Hill, where there were plenty of detractors, they really wanted to just stereotype Indian country and Native America, and he had to live with that every day. And it was hard to see sometimes the way, if he wasn't respected or treated as much as well by the commercial peers. Again, he overcame that, and he just kept working. And the people that gravitated towards him were some of the best people, and also had some of the best stories as well. And I'm talking about people like Knut Knutson, Matt Robinson, James Klaus, people that worked in Indian country and worked with Indian gaming, and early on saw the potential of Indian gaming. And they knew that Ernie couldn't get a better spokesman to lead that charge. So that's the big one, Chance, that I don't think a lot of people really knew, or had a reason to know. It was just something, if you hung around him a lot, it always popped up. You know, he was proud of his sobriety. He was proud of being a family man. He loved kids, loved his grandkids, had a whole bunch of them, and always said he wanted more. But you know, here we are, well, very sudden and tragic death, and I just know the whole Oneida Nation and his family are just, you know, like us. We're just, you know, Levi and I were just with him. We were over at NCAI with Larry and Mark. You know, every one of us will tell you he was in good spirits. He was fine. Had been walking the halls all week. So this is just really shocking.
And you know, you like I said, you know him behind the scenes on every level. You know, was he tired? Did he have a lot of energy? Was he? I mean, I'm not meaning physically tired, but was he? You know.
Mm-hmm. You know him. He never let on that he was tired. But you know that the way he traveled and the way he would just stay up and talk to people and then get up early for breakfast. You know there were times where he had to be tired, but publicly and frankly in the office, never kind of let on that he was, you know, overly exhausted or anything like that, to the point of, you know, where we would tell him sometimes, like, you know, this was your third back-to-back trip. Why don't you just skip this one? And you know, you had to kind of push him in that direction. And as much as a family man he was, you know, he'd always carve out a day or two if you needed him. So, you know, Chance, I would say, you know, he had back issues. He got knee replacement surgery. You know, those were the only times that I ever saw him really, you know, quote unquote tired or just, you know, running low on energy. And it was because, you know, back issues and knee issues will wear you out any day of the week. But he had just come through those, and he was, you know, sort of back to him. He wasn't using the cane anymore. He was walking around fine. We were walking all day around DC. So, you know, again, it's just shocking. And I think we say it all the time, but, you know, I mean, everyone should. You just got to keep getting checked out. You got to keep on top of your health. You know, don't put it off, putting it off. You know, I'm at that age now where I start to put it off just because I felt lucky my whole life. I haven't had much to deal with, but, you know, I need to get the colonoscopies and all that kind of stuff and get that going just to stay healthy. And, you know, you just shouldn't ignore yourself.
Yeah.
Past is not prologue when it comes to your health.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, and you know, we Native men, our life expectancy is lower than the Caucasians, and Ernie and I have had those conversations. I had the conversation 6 weeks before Rick Hill passed away, and he was at NCAI and pushing the movie they wanted to make about Jim Thorpe, Nedra Darling, and I was talking to Rick, and he was telling me how he had lost weight and he's feeling good. You know, we got to take care. I remember saying to him, "We got to take care of ourselves. Our life expectancy is not like Caucasian guys." And when I found out about Rick Hill, I was at home working at home that day. I was walking upstairs, and it hit me. I said, "Wait a minute. He and I were just talking about that." And I went downstairs, called Ernie, and Ernie picked up right away, and he was crying. And he told Levi, "I love Rick Hill." So I want to say, I say that to all of us. We got to take care of ourselves. And the gentlemen out there, Indian gentlemen out there, I still say Indian, Native Americans out there, we got to take care of ourselves. And I think Ernie would say, "Yes, sir." And I had even told him that I read, I'm on blood pressure pills. And I told him, I said, I read that, I guess the study done in England, you should take your blood pressure pills at night versus morning. I said, because the life expectancy grows by, I think it was 12 years or something like that. So Ernie's like, yeah, thank you for telling me. And so we all stick together. And that's why I'm happy we're here tonight talking about it. Because, you know, we all do, we're friends, and you guys are the leaders. I'm not the leader like you guys are the leader, but I have to tell you, I respect what goes on in Indian country, and the utmost respect for Ernie. And he was like a giant among giants when he on Capitol Hill. And I remember the congressmen, the senators walking, they knew him. And it was like, Ernie. And usually it's the other way around. You know, the aides are, hey, come up here and I'm going to introduce you to Ernie. But they already knew him. And so that to me is a mark of his greatness too. And we're gonna miss him. I want to ask. I wrote the other day about him in my tribute, and it really strikes me that in preparation for 7 generations, we always talk about as Native people, we prepare for the next 7 generations, and we always look back at our ancestors, but we don't always recognize the leaders we have today. And I argue that there needs to be a book about Ernie, because he is somebody that young people should and could look up to, and that's part of preparing for the next 7 generations. So, Mark, President Macarro, if you don't mind me asking, what do you think we can do collectively to maybe push some legislation to be named for Ernie? A good friend of mine sent me a thing. What about a gate being named for him at Lambeau Field, which I would love that. But what, if you guys don't mind, let's talk about how we can help continue on his legacy and who he is, or what he represented for Indian country. President Macarro.
Wow. Anything and everything. Let me open with that. He he was such an outsized presence in everything that he was endeavoring in. Advocacy on the Hill, leading a conference, just walking down a hallway. And so that and his ability to connect with people. I'm trying to draw this together in real time. One of the important things about Ernie, and I want to tie this into I thought of legacy, is that there was a period of time in his life, his family's life, where they were my neighbors here, right next to Pechanga, and they lived here, and he was beginning to work in Indian country. This was in the 90s, and he learned about the great oak tree that we have. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to see it. It's between 1,500 and almost 2,000 years old, somewhere in that age range. And he connected with the tree. We took him there to see that back in the day, like 30 years ago or so. And he was blown away by it, and he immediately connected with it. And I will tell you, at least once a year, as he made his way, pit stopped here at Pechanga, he made a point to going to the tree. He would always take tobacco, and he'd spend some time there one-on-one with the tree. I think he developed a kinship relationship with the tree. But I think he kept grounding himself like that during his travels. I saw a picture that Victor posted at Stonehenge, and he was sitting down, and the caption Victor put is he laid some tobacco down there. And I think he sought out sacred sites and power places and places where he could reconnect and re-energize with not only what he was doing, but I think with the spiritual dimension, which I think was part of his drive. So whatever we can do in as part of his legacy, I think we need to incorporate that spiritual element that he showed. He was not afraid to show me, and I happened to see that because we had this tree. But I venture to guess he did this in other parts of Indian country where he went. If there was a sacred spring or body of water or a rock or a mountain or something, he was going to go there and put tobacco there and say prayers and connect and ground. And I think that was real important to him. So Ernie was always key to tell us. I feel like we learned so much about him in his life because he was very open about it. His mom was an activist. His dad was a change maker on the inside, institutional change maker from inside the BIA. He put the best of those qualities together and embodied that. I think if there's an organization, if there is, a resolution, something, because I think he would put the gloves, he'd be ready to put the gloves on and scrap with somebody, and then he would catch himself and he would tell us, I caught myself, and he says, I got to be the statesman. My mom says, even though she was the activist and the rabble rouser, she'd be the statesman. You got to be the statesman. You can't be out there, wringing people by the neck or whatever. And so he would admonish us, this is what we do. We bring that warrior mentality, but, we are people. And so all those big ideas together, he demonstrated constantly. And so the answer to your question is, how do we tie that all together in an end product that that is a reflection of how Ernie lived in front of us in advocating for Indian country. Whatever that answer is that should be the legacy, because he clearly left that for so many of us. And we saw that every time we were at a conference with him or on the Hill with him, and thankful for it, learned so much from it.
Mm.
And Executive Director Larry Wright, what are your thoughts? How can we really perpetrate the legacy of the great Ernie Stevens?
I think that's the question at hand for sure. I don't think anything's going to be adequate enough. But looking at all the things that Ernie cared about, which was everything, but just the many conversations that I had with him and how proud he was to be a part of starting the youth commission at NCAI and supporting that all of those years. And, understanding, the purpose for that commission is to help those young leaders become our future leaders, and instilling in them his passion and his beliefs, I think is crucial in their development, and so that we can carry on his legacy and making sure that they understand, to be there's never going to be another Ernie Stevens, but to do everything you can to follow in those footsteps, to elevate and continue on with his advocacy and his beliefs, is something that we can all strive for. But as the current leaders, what can we do to help further his legacy by instilling that in our next generation? And those are some initial thoughts I had just at NCAI alone, and understanding the big footprint that he had with NCAI in and of itself, not to mention IGA. And so I think it's those kinds of things, and any proclamations or anything like that are all good, but it's truly, in Ernie's way of continually telling those stories so that we never forgot who the Rick Hills were, and the Tim Wapatos and all of those. Mm-hmm. And so now it's on us to make sure that the next generation doesn't forget who Chairman Stevens was.
Yeah, I think that is just so critical. And Jason, over at, and I know it's all fresh, and I don't think we're being premature. We saw how when someone was assassinated recently, how they have really elevated him. But Ernie was he was great to us, and so we do need to elevate him. Jason, had any thoughts you have?
Yeah, I mean, we can start with look. If you're in Washington, D.C., you need to come visit us, especially if you're from Indian country. Come visit our building in Washington, D.C., because it's a historic building. It's on the National Registry of Historic Places. It was built all by slave labor. It was the house for the first Librarian of Congress back in 1797. We're right in that building, and Chairman's office has all these gifts. He's got pictures from every president since the first President Bush. Oh, well, not Trump though. Sorry, but guess we couldn't get him in there. But every president he's taken a picture with, and it wasn't just some phony baloney photograph, whatever it was. We made the effort to reach out to both sides of the aisle, and his office is a monument to that legacy of bipartisanship, and with the willingness of the family, we're going to keep his, office the way it is for now until the appropriate time to start, preserving a lot of this stuff, like you say, Levi. And so his legacy will live on in that building, and that building should never leave Indian country's hands.
Yeah.
Porch Creek Band of Indians right now have the mortgage. Once it's paid off, somebody else another tribe should take a crack on just, owning it. That this building cannot leave Indian country's hands. It's not the IGA building; it's Indian country's building. And
I like that.
We have one last addition to do in the basement, Tribal Leaders Lounge. He was excited about that project, but he'll live on there for sure in the historic building, and he's a historic man, so his legacy will be cemented there. And then we've got other places that we can honor him. We have NCAI coming up in November. We'd love to do something small there for the tribal leaders, and then obviously our trade show next year. And it's just a shame, and Chance, you knew Ernie in a joking manner. He was never one to turn down an accolade, right? So yeah, we've got a lot more accolades
Someone
to give,
else,
that's
yeah.
for sure. And he'll be appreciative of that, because and all that stuff, it wasn't like he just collected stuff to put in the basement. He's very meticulous on holding all that stuff up, and very proud of that. Here's this man from the streets of LA, and now he's working on behalf of Indian country with senators, congressmen, presidents. I just think he never saw himself in that light, but once he was there, he had the background and the structure within his family to succeed at it. So it really is a success story that Indian country should hold on to.
I had the privilege of being in his Green Bay office. I've been in both offices of his. You put those,
Yeah.
you probably need a U-Haul, and you could really make a nice museum. He had, I want to say there may have been more stuff there in Green Bay than I saw in Washington, but I always was really impressed, and you just go, oh,
Right.
wow, he met that, it's so impressive. Hey, I want to put up real quick and Kristen, our producer, can put it up. This is this is the Pechanga Potawatomi tribal headquarters in Dowagiac, Michigan. Matt Weesaw, the chairman, he declared, or he proclaimed, he wanted the flags be flown at half mast. And my friend Becky Williams took the picture, because when I got the press release, I didn't have a photo. So I said, Becky, are you still at work? Can you give me and so this came in. This was taken about 5 o'clock tonight. So in honor of Ernie Stevens. Isn't that wonderful?
Man.
Thank you, Chris.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it gives me chills looking at it. And we're going to move on to the next panel. But before then, we were going to hear, and Billy Mills was traveling today. And Billy, actually, it was just me. You'll see my face, but we're going to be listening to Billy talk. So, Kristen, if you could play that. And thank you, gentlemen, for being part of this remembering Ernie
Thank you, brothers.
Stevens.
Okay, just give me a signal.
Okay. We want to talk about Ernie Stevens passing. Billy, he was a friend of yours. What's your reflections about Ernie Stevens?
Oh, gosh, Ernie, he was just a youngster when I first met him, but a very curious youngster. He was like always seeking some knowledge in some way. And I was intrigued with that because of his dad, Ernie Sr., who was a great leader. Ernie Jr. was he was the athlete when I was a young boy, but he also had kind of like a vision to achieve something beyond. When his sports career is over with, I saw this maturity and a focus beginning to come, and what a great leader he became, and saddens us all to lose him. But from the spiritual standpoint, he's in heaven's skies, and kind of the journey we all want to make at some point in time. So I just say to my friend Ernie, higher, swifter, stronger, with God's speed. And we've lost a great leader.
Words from Billy.
You really were. And are our guests still with us? I don't even know if is Aaron Payment, Gay Kingman, and Gina Marie.
Okay, we got. All
Okay.
right, Dr. Payment, how you doing there, boss? Good. Make sure I get your voice there. Gina
I had
Marie,
to
sharp,
come indoors. It's dark outside now.
Well, listen, Chance. Why don't you, if you don't mind, introduce folks for us, and then we'll get going on the second half of this, and we will. We said we were going to be done in an hour, but Ernie took a long time to live his life, a life well lived. So if we go beyond an hour, no big deal. So let's go.
Well, first and foremost, I do want to thank President Macarro. I want to thank Larry, and I want to thank Jason for joining us. That was really powerful. And I'm very excited about this next lineup here. Obviously, they'll introduce himself real briefly, but I remember as a young one coming into this, back then I called him Aaron Payment. He was definitely a motivator, and I remember listening to him up in Sault Ste. Marie. I believe also down in St. Ignace. He spoke at some little gathering down there, and I can't remember, but and then so he comes to us from the Sault Ste. Marie tribe. I'm going to share a little bit here momentarily. We also have right up there, the very top. Oh my gosh, the very top. And I want to give a big shout out to my dear friend, my big sister. This is Gina Marie with the Native American Basketball Invitational. When I met G with Ernie Stevens Jr. And Gina, I'm so grateful that you're on with us. I know that like everywhere you were at, Chairman was there. Everywhere Chairman was at, Gina was there. And I know, guys, it's taken a lot for Gina to come and be a part of this, because one thing that Chairman used to always tell me when it came to this girl right here, it was always, I'm Team Gina. So Gina, thank you for joining us this evening. Maybe introduce yourself and we'll go over to Aaron. And well, I'll let you do. Let me just jump to it. Okay.
Okay.
Just tell me how impactful, how huge of a role did Chairman Ernie Stevens Jr. play with the Native American Basketball Invitational?
We wouldn't be here without him. He was bigger than life. I remember when the first time I met him, how intimidated I was by him, because you had this big man, and I knew how powerful he was at the time. He was actually chairman of IGA. We're going back 22 years ago. And I'm this little, spitfire, as he always called me, getting him involved in NABI, this vision we had. And I just remember, how scared I was to talk to him at first. And when you were going back 22 years ago when we started NABI, and, the one thing I will always love about Chairman is he loved everything I wasn't and everything I was. I'm not Native American. I'm not tribally enrolled. I'm Mexican and Italian, born and raised in the inner city of Boston. We shared stories about how we came from nothing. And I loved him for that. And that love and support of me was the wind beneath my wings. He knew I was tenacious. I was tough. Me and my husband were just laughing yesterday. He would be surprised I'm crying so much, because he would be, she cries, because he always saw me as this tough little spitfire. NABI would not be NABI. We would not be where we're at with NABI without him. From our inception in 2003, he was there. He was there every year. Our golf tournament, and I want to just thank Jason for the support of IGA for our golf tournament, and sharing your chairman with us with NABI every year. But every time I walked in, when we were doing any NABI event, he was there. I just remember when I see him, I would just exhale, because he was there. And I knew everything was going to be okay. Coming into working in Indian country, I worked for AC Green for 10 years, and I introduced those two, and they've been glued at the hip ever since. Which I love, because Chairman was a big Lakers fan, and even then me and him would go, I'm a Boston girl, and he loved me even for that. So I can honestly say NABI would not be NABI. We'd not be as big as we are, how successful as we are. Our kids wanting to come, and constant growing every year. We're just growing in leaps and bounds. I consider him an honorary co-founder. He was there with us for 22 years. And I would, Levi, we talked about when Ernie Stevens calls, right? You pick up the phone, right? And
I was going through that car wash.
Right. I love that story too.
He says, when you get done with the car wash, call me back.
Yeah, he was amazing. And I remember picking up the phone and calling him if I was going through something and I had to figure out how to maneuver through it. He was my mentor. He was my advisor. And I remember him texting me back, I'm on the floor. I'm speaking, I'll call you right back. And I'm like, what floor? And then I finally figured out what floor he was talking about. He's in Washington, D.C. And as soon as he was out that door, walking down them steps, he would call me back. And I will never forget how much he just loves Nabi and the support I got from him over the years and sharing his family with me. I mean, he had no grandchildren when we started Nabi. So every time a grandchild was born, I mean, I heard about it, how much he loved his wife. I mean, their love story.
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl, she came to the golf tournament every year and she would just, you know, I got to experience a relationship with Chairman different than the political side and the casino side. It was for youth and it was for sports and it was raw at times. The difficulty of being an advocate for Native American youth, but he admired my passion. He inspired the warrior spirit in me. And I was, another story I told Levi was when he would always say, Gina Marie, you got to put your big girl shirt on. And I would always think, I thought that expression was big girl panties, but Chairman would never say that, right? Because he was so polite and he was so respectful towards me. And I'm like, I just wish one day he would just say, you got to put your big girl panties on, you know, but he never did. It never came because that's who he was. Loving, kind, respectful, encouraging. And he was afraid of me. He would always say, oh, you're in that GM mode. You scare me when you're in that mode. And here am I, 5'4", if I'm lucky, scaring this big man. But he knew that mode because his wife would go in it. He goes, oh, Cheryl goes into this mode. I saw the backstage person that Jason talked about. So when I would go to Nigan, I see him on the stage with the mic or NCAI, the years that I used to go. And I would look at him like, wow, that's Ernie, you know, because I got to see the backstage Ernie, the friend Ernie, the loving Ernie, the caring. He calls me his little sister. I think of Nabi now, like what we're going to do. As soon as Nabi's over, I go into Nabi mode, planning for the next year. And all I see is blank. It's like I have this writer's block because he's gone and I can't imagine moving forward without him, even though I know I have to, because he would be really upset with me if I don't. Yeah. But right now, he was so big. You know, you hear, I've been reading all the accolades, all the testimonies, the heartache people are feeling with his loss, and Indian country lost a great man. Our world, we lost humanity lost a great human. There will never be another Ernie Stevens.
Right. Thank you, G. Thank you so much. Levi, thank you, G.
Gene, I want to ask you, how many Native kids have gone through Nabi program?
Well, we've been doing it. We just did our 23rd or 22nd year. I'm kind of frazzled right now. I'm still
23.
Thank you, Chance, our official MC since 2003. You've been with us from the beginning. Well, I would say thousands. We had 214s this past summer.
That's fantastic. And what I love about it is that love Ernie had for those youth. He was always promoting Native youth.
He would talk to them. He would stop and talk to them and encourage them. I mean, when we're talking about, you know, Nabi and his encouragement, we are going to have tribal leaders for years to come that he encouraged, young youth that are now getting higher education. Because education, Mark West and I, founders of Nabi, that's our platform. Like the basketball tournament is a tool to get all the kids there, but we have educational summits, all this stuff. Ernie was so instrumental in making sure that we made education a priority, that, you know, we've given over 600,000 in scholarships. I mean, we are going to have leaders in Indian country for years to come because of that man.
Yeah. And remember the name, Coach Phil Homoratha.
Yes.
Remember Ernie Stevens Jr. Getting those awards on a national level, that is going to be pretty dang special. Hey, before we go even further, G, I want to bring in Dr. Payment here, Sault Ste. Marie Tribe. Dr. Payment, you know, and you know, shape it how you want to shape this question to you. What has it been like since last Friday when we here on Turtle Island got the news? I know that you and Ernie, you guys talked on a different level than, you know, the Wolverines or the Lions or the Lakers. And, What has your world been like since Friday? And what did you learn? And what did you teach, Chairman?
I think, can you hear me to make sure?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, so I see things a little differently. I follow our traditional spiritual path, and I'm also Christian, and I'm proud of that. And so the way that I reconcile all of this, it is deeply sad, and I appreciate, and Ernie would actually revel in all of the recognition because he works so hard and he deserves that. And one of the teachings that I think that we're getting tonight is when Ernie spoke. It wasn't a short speech. It took a little bit of time, and he had your attention. He had your rapt attention. And so, if we do believe in our faith, and we know that we're going to a better place, and we're being reunited with our ancestors. And so I think that the first thing that I thought of is he was so deeply hurt when Rick Hill left. You saw it in his posts, you saw it in his remembrances. And so, I just had this vision that Rick Hill came to help him as one of his helpers as he's crossing over and going back to meet our ancestors. And, I have to give a shout out to the great Oneida Nation. They gave us Charlie Hill, Passassy Hill. So there's a whole bunch of hills, Norbert Hill and Rick Hill and Ernie Stevens. And the other thing I want to recognize is, he did all these wonderful, great big things. But one thing that really touches my heart is when his dad started needing help and failing, he chronicled it and he shared that with us. He learned from good family and good people, and he carried on that legacy. And I think if he could ask us to do a couple things, one would be to carry his legacy, to check in with each other to see how are you doing, because he always asked me, how are you doing? Are you taking care of yourself? How are you doing? And politics back home can be awful, and I went through hell. And he called me when all that was happening just to see how I was doing. And every time I saw him, he would ask me, how are you doing? We used to compare notes as we're getting older, because he used to be an athlete, and then he was a walker, and now he's a bike rider. And just checking in. And he would ask us to keep checking in with each other and making sure that we're okay. The other really big thing, legislative legacy, is he worked hard on the Tribal Labor and Sovereignty Act. And I think he would probably, if he could tell us right now, what's the next big thing we need to work on, it would be tribal labor and sovereignty. And I think the time is right for us to get back to that. But I guess one final personal thing is at NCAI, the last time I sat in him at NCAI, again, he asked me how I was doing. I sat with him. Levi, you were sitting with us. And he looked over at a staffer that he had with him, and he kind of made like a move, and right away, he was like the Indian Godfather. He knew what that meant. So his staffer came over with a pen, an IRA pen, or an IGA pen, and pin. And so he gave me it, and then Ernie said, no, hold on. He took his off of his jacket, and the one that he took off his jacket was a couple $100 value. And instead of the little pin, he gave me his pin. And so I'll be wearing that for the next year in remembrance of him. But for him to take it off his own jacket and to give me, so just on a personal level, he always was touching your heart, checking how you were doing, and he wants us to. I would think he would want us to tell each other we love each other when we see each other. I love you. I love you for the work you're doing. And I love you for the ancestors and for our youth. That's what he would tell us to remember.
Hey, Aaron, if you don't mind, Dr. Payne, and we lost Gay, and I think we may have to have a separate Bidaské because she has so much history, and I want to give her the honor because he mentioned her at that press conference, the last press conference in Washington, and he was praising her and her late husband, Timothy Wapato. And what I want to ask you, and you as a tribal leader, talk about the significance of Indian gaming.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about Ernie, but this was a guy that was, what was it, 10 or 11 billion dollars, and this past year it was 43.9 billion. That's with a B, folks. $1 billion. Native Indian gaming is the biggest segment of any gaming. out there, including in commercial gaming. So you think about that, where we've come and Jason, he said it so well. Ernie faced some difficult times, and even somebody went to Capitol Hill and said they don't look very Indian to me. And Ernie went through all that stuff. He lived through the hard times, and so the last 25 years. But Dr. Prem, can you just tell our viewers what Indian gaming really means to Indian country?
Absolutely. So, again, I'm a person of faith, and I believe that the Creator puts angels in our path. And so, just to recognize Gay Kingman, she is one of those angels, because she came in both in the gaming space at a critical time, also NCAI. NCAI was on the verge of financial ruin, and she came in and she ran the show, and she led, and that's like 30 years ago. And she still alternately becomes like the regional vice president for her region for NCAI. But we have great leaders to emulate and to follow, and great role models to follow and respect. Gaming. So there's an underbelly, or there's a side to gaming that that I don't like, with some competition stuff that happens with side. But gaming gave us a pathway to empowerment and self-determination. And we went from having people in our community who were chronically underemployed. We had racism in our community where Indian people could not get a job. It just wasn't going to happen. And we went from that to being the largest employer and seeing pride on people's faces that were able to work a job like a greeter. This one elderly lady, she was a greeter. We probably didn't need a greeter, but she loved her job.
She got a job.
People, and we moved people from not having employment, not having an opportunity, to having to be able to buy their own homes. And we really credit the National Indian Gaming Association, now Indian Gaming Association, Ernie's leadership, Gay's leadership, and titans like Ron Allen that really led us down this path that created opportunity for us, that opened up doors. That's why I have an education, because of all those leaders and what gaming represents for our people.
Mm-hmm. And you know what, Dr. Payman, this is so crazy. Chairman did not need an MC at IGA, but he gave me a job because he felt bad for me. just like Native American, just like Nabi don't need an MC, but she's learning some stuff from Chairman, and she's giving me a job because she feels bad for me.
No.
Now I know if I come to Sault Ste. Marie to do a gig, I'll know why. He don't need him there, but we just feel bad.
I think Dr. Payman could arrange a one night, a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, you're the master MC. You're master MC, Chase.
I appreciate that. And what I loved about, real quick, I don't want to get off topic here, but what I loved about Chairman was he would give me an agenda, and he would run it by Ricky, and me. Big shout out to Ricky. I love you, brother. It was always crazy because he gave us the agenda, and then it was just like, hey man, just go with it. Whatever is on your heart, just go with it. It don't matter, just go with it.
You never stuck to it.
We never stuck to it. Hey, listen, real quick, Levi, before I turn it back over to you, just real quick, Gina, can you share? Okay, so real quick, we'll set up the first Nabi tournament. We had 12 boys teams, 11 girls teams. I believe that's what the case was.
Yeah.
Ernie was with us the whole time. 23 years later, over 200 girls teams, over 200 boys teams. But now this year, we're going to try something. We're going to do a few things. Gina, just briefly, how are we going to honor Chairman at the upcoming national championships? Well, just real briefly.
Well, Chance, I'll be honest with you. And I'm thinking, there's so much I want to do. Before I get into that, prior to Chairman passing, we started a dialogue about an Ernie Stevens Jr. basketball court up in Oneida. And I was sharing pictures with them and what it will look like. And I want to go forward with that project. So I'm going to get into Gina mode that always scared him, he said, and I'm going to get that project done. As far as Nabi is concerned, he we're going to do so much. I mean, I have my staff, I have other advisors, Mark West. We're creating a working document of all the ways we can honor him. Leadership Award. We have the Phil Homaratha Leadership Award because of Coach Phil Homaratha and his support in Abby for years before his passing. We now have, we're going to implement the Ernie Stevens Jr. Leadership Award. A scholarship fund. My goal was to increase our scholarships for 2026. It was already part of our strategic plan. I'm just going to now, of course, name them after chairman. You know, all our jerseys that we have made for our kids are all under, you know, our Nabi Nation brand now. So I have a lot of creative control. His initials and his Haskell number will be on every single jersey our kids wear. So these are just some of the things. Chance, I know you brought up a T-shirt idea, which I love.
Limited edition, limited
yeah,
edition, not
limited edition,
Ernie
you know,
Stevens Jr. on the
T-shirt.
back, favorite number. Be on the lookout for it. And you know what, Dr. Payment, I'll buy yours for you.
Oh, good.
Send me one too. Send me one too.
I will. I'm going to take it a step further, though, Chance. I am going to get them made for the championship games and put them on the backs of the chairs. So everybody that comes to the championship game gets a free T-shirt honoring Chairman Stevens.
Right.
So the whole bowl, because now we're filling that up. It's gotten so big at the Suns Arena. Everybody will have his shirt. It's going to be a celebration of his life at Nabi. And all those details will start, coming when but I'll keep you posted. You know, you're going to be right there in the middle of it. And also doing the MC when we break the ribbon for that court.
Invite me too. Invite me. Native News will be there.
Oh, I would love you all to be there because right now this is an honor for me to be among all these leaders to talk about Ernie and what he meant to me and Nabi. So.
And I promise the viewers, we will bring Gay Kingman on very soon because she'll have her own show, but we really do need to hear from her, and that's part of the process of honoring Ernie as well. She sent me a photo, and we'll put it on that show where he gave her a jersey that somebody who's native plays for the Green Bay Packers, number 85. Ernie gave that to her because he couldn't fit it. He's too big. But no, before we close out, I just real quick, if all of us, Chance, you as well, minute or less, tell us your favorite Ernie story or memorable some event that you just want to share with the public.
Go ahead, Doctor.
Oh, okay. So when this is kind of timely right now because the government's going to shut down, is when sequestration happened, a couple government shutdowns, I thought, okay, we got to do something about this. We have to educate tribal leaders to really hit the hill. And so I came up with this little button called It's a Trust Thing. Treaties are not discretionary. And so I was pushing this out and I was really trying to get this going. And so Ernie took a whole bunch of buttons. He asked for a bunch, like 100, and then he started handing them out and getting it going. So, this is probably about 15 years ago. So I was kind of young on the scene. But just to know that he would take that along and make it part of his own effort. And that really worked. I mean, it educated people about sequestration, exempting tribes from sequestration. So I just really appreciate that. And yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. How about you, Gina, in just a minute or so?
I'll give a recent story. At Nabi this year, we were on a time because our championship game's alive on AZ Family Sports. And I remember Chairman Stevens was going to be giving the awards to actually Councilman Chris Osceola from the Seminole Tribe and Andrea Barber, one of our former board members. And he was going to give the Phil Homaratha Leadership Awards. And I remember the Phoenix Suns, all the games off, they have their their headphones on. And I go over to get his mic and they're like, no, he's just going to give them to him. He's not going to talk, right? And I'm like, yeah. They go, well, I go, he might say a few words. And we all know better, right? We all know Ernie, right? So they go, can he keep it down to 2 minutes? And I'm like, sure. So I just like grabbed the mic, walked over, handed it to him. I said, the Suns want you to keep it down to 2 minutes. And I just walked away because I knew it wasn't going to happen. 15 minutes later, we're on time, we're on live TV, everything was delayed. And I just sat there and I just giggled because I'm used to that every year. Like, you don't give Ernie Stevens a mic and give him a time. It doesn't work.
Amen.
So he said some beautiful things about Chris Osceola and the Seminole Tribe and our two honorees, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. He really brought a lot to that ceremony, honoring Coach Phil Homorath, and he was Ernie. That's what he did. He brought life and love into every word he spoke.
Right.
Man in charge.
Yeah.
Chance, what about your favorite?
Listen,
one of your favorite?
Levi, before I turn it back over to you, I just want to say mine. I always hugged his mom every time she was at Indian Gaming. And I remember one time he came up to me and he says, well, I'll bring you back next year. And I'm like, man, thank you, man. I appreciate that. I thought it was my humor. And he said, you're not really funny, but my mom really liked you. And that's the only reason I got to go back every year. And what really means a lot to me was I was there for his mom. He had a surprise birthday party, I believe, for his mom, and I got to spend the day. Thank you for my brother Rick Grandquist for picking me up and taking me over to the surprise party. And then this past trip to Oneida, Gina and Dr. Payment, the last time I was in Oneida, there's something on my heart that just said, hey, you know what? Chairman, I know your mom fell a few months ago. I want to pray with her. And that guy held me to it. I was going to anyway, but he held me to it. Hey, I'm coming to get you. Hey, I'm sending someone to get you. Hey, I'm up here by the museum. Hey, follow me. I'm in a truck. And we went over to his mom's house, and it was just a blessing to just pray with her, put my hands on her shoulder, and I was with my DJ, and, Chairman was there, his daughter was there, and his daughter-in-law was there. And it was just a great time. And I never thought that'd be the last time I'd see him and his mom together. So that's it for me. How about you, Levi? And I'll let you close us out, boss.
Well, I'm going to say a real fast one. I was, when Ernie called, you took his call, right? Just kind of like when children call, you take their call.
Car wash.
So Ernie calls me, and I'm in a car wash. He says, what's all that noise? I'm in a car wash, Ernie. He said, well, when you get done with the car wash, call me back. Click. So that one was funny. And but thank you all for being part of this. And I want to thank President Macarro,
Larry Wright,
Executive Director Larry Wright, and doing a great job over at NCAI, and Jason Giles, right-hand man to Ernie over there at Indian Gaming for the last 19 years. And Gina, I know you had a very special part of the man's heart. He talked about Navi all the time. Dr. Payment, thank you for giving your insights. And Chance, you're the man. I appreciate you coming on. And I just couldn't think of anyone else that I wanted to co-host this with. You were his right-hand man as well at the conference.
The successes we both had ADHD, and we both thought we were funny.
We call it Indian humor, okay?
AKA Indian humor.
And it works. It works for us. And to our guests, thank you very much. And I apologize profusely for the technical problems we've had. Just internet connections in every Indian country can be horrendous sometimes, and everything you ever heard about is true. So, but I apologize, and hopefully the edited version will be better than what the live version was about. And we do have a very fine producer who can fix some of the technical problems. And thank you, Kristen. And to our viewers, we've been honoring the great late Ernie Stevens Jr. And I'm sorry we had to say late, but Ernie left us suddenly last Friday, and I'm going to personally miss him. But I really feel like in Indian country, we really had, this is what Native News is about. We are a communications company. Yes, we publish, but we are foremost communicators in Indian country, and we want to do a good job for Indian country always. And Ernie was a champion all weekend long. I saw the outpouring of love and gratitude on the internet for Ernie Stevens. So we felt it was appropriate to have a live stream to honor Ernie Stevens. His burial and the services ceremonies will take place in Green Bay on the Oneida Nation this weekend, Friday and Saturday. So I plan to be there, and all of you in Indian country, if you can't make it to the funeral, say a prayer for the Stevens family. Say a prayer for the Oneida Nation. Pray for Indian country. And of course, we need to pray for this country. We're in trouble these days. And so we live in troubled times, but as Chairman Stevens said, our ancestors, he said this just less than 2 weeks ago at NCAI, that our ancestors had to deal with a lot more with a lot less than what we have. So we know we are blessed, and we will get through. We are all in this together in Indian country.